Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here. Especially grateful on these beautiful days that we're getting out here in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. It's starting to cool off, and I think it's going to be under 100 degrees this weekend, which may sound warm to some folks out there across the country, but it is darn nice to finally have that starting to settle in out here in the desert. Boy, I was just talking to Robin before the show. Had a great response to last week's interview with Seth Leibson, my friend and radio host here in the Valley on 960 The Patriot. We were talking about drug prevention and specifically, the campaign Hard Stop that we're doing. So really appreciate all the support, the people sharing, liking, commenting, and on our interview. And I think I'm going to start to incorporate some more interviews into this as well too. Just had really great feedback. I thought it was a great conversation. It helps when your first guest is a longtime professional broadcaster as well, and all I have to do is kind of get out of the way and ask some good questions. So just appreciate that, and thanks to everybody who downloaded that and shared that with their friends. But today we're going to talk about a topic. It's a little close to home, but it's divorce. I want to talk about kind of pre-divorce thoughts, emotions, post-divorce thoughts, emotions, unexpected pros of divorce, unexpected cons of divorce, kind of things for those of us that are maybe contemplating it, going through it, just officially signed off on documents, or now trying to kind of rebuild their life. It is a challenging time in one's life, and unfortunately, I've been married twice and have unique perspective on this matter. And I think it's time to share and open up a little bit about that and talk a little about it and kind of share some of my thoughts and experiences on the matter, and in hopes that maybe it can help somebody that's out there, because it is, I don't think people understand the toll that it can take on you. And then again, this is me as a guy who is 9 years sober now going through this. And, I didn't get the luxury, if you want to call it that, of being able to kind of drown my sorrows and kind of going through the divorce and what that looks like, and instead had to sit there and kind of accept the reality and kind of some of the pain and different emotions that come along with that. But before we get into that, I want to thank a couple of our sponsors as well. Again, our friends at ShareTech. As always, you've heard me talk about it. If you're in the need for a drug or alcohol screen, Google ShareTech. Find their test. They're going to send it directly to your door. This is the same test that some of the leading treatment centers and outpatient programs use when they send tests to your home, right? Not all testing is done at a physical location. So, Google ShareTech, find out exactly how we can ship this test directly to your front door. It is the utmost in accuracy, discretion, privacy, and you can trust the results because they're done in a lab too. Right? So again, big thanks to our friends at ShareTech for that. I was just meeting with a friend here in the Valley, owner of EasySheets.club. Again, folks, it's 2024. I meant to ask Suri before we come on. I think there's like less than 100 days till we're in 2024. So by the end of the year, let's start thinking about doing sheets a little bit differently. No more just going on Amazon, buying a cheapy set. Let's find the color you like, the style you like. You can rotate them out, get them professionally cleaned and pressed so you're sleeping in a resort every night, not just when you book a flight to Maui and get to sleep in those Westin Heavenly or whatever it is. Bring that comfort to your own bed. Again, 2024. Let's start thinking about things differently. You probably use different toothpaste and detergent and better food ingredients and all these other areas of your life. Let's start thinking about the thing that you spend the most time in, your bed, and how we can upgrade that. Go to EasySheets.club. Trust me, you will thank me. Your partner will thank me. Whoever's sleeping next to you will thank me as well, too. And last but not least, our Hard Stop campaign for our youth drug abuse prevention organization. Follow us at Hard Stop Official. Right, this is important work that we're doing. We just crossed 1,000 followers today on Instagram. Again, at Hard Stop Official. We're over 2,300 followers on Facebook. Again, we just released this to the world about 3 weeks ago and kind of officially made our release last week. So we are picking up some serious momentum. We want you, the parents, we want your kids, your nephews, we want everybody to be following us. We are the new voice of youth drug abuse prevention. Follow us. Our campaign is not going to be anything like you've seen before. So go to the stopstartshere.org. That's our website. Obviously, we'd love a donation, but what we really want, follow, share, all that good stuff at Hard Stop Official. So, Okay, digging into the topic at hand here. So, divorce happens. I don't know the exact statistics, but it sure feels like it's hovering around 50%, right? 50%, and maybe even more. I don't know. Maybe it's more just in Scottsdale, Arizona, maybe across the country where we're a little better than what we are here in Scottsdale, Arizona. But hey, it is what it is. Needless to say, it's common and it's prevalent. And there's a lot of shame and guilt and a lot of things attached to this, right? And I'll weave in and out of some of my personal story as well too. I was married one time. I met my first wife actually probably about a mile from where I'm sitting right here at a bar down in Old Town Scottsdale in my late 20s. We dated for a few years. This is when I was actively drinking as well too, and she was a normal drinker. Certainly wasn't anything like my drinking, but had a great relationship. And after a couple years, you wake up in your early 30s and you're like, okay, I've been with this person for a couple years. What's the next thing to do? Well, the next thing to do is to get married. Now, I don't, if you were like me, we'd been having fun. We were partying, we were traveling, we were, didn't have any kids. We just had very little responsibility and a couple bucks in our pocket. And all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, have I really put thought and intention into this relationship? And it's not that I didn't love her or care for her, but it was like, well, this is what we do. And I think we were both in like with each other. I'm sure we loved each other as well too, but it was just like, okay, well, this is what we did. So we get married, right? And you know, it was all the right intentions. And we had a great event and a great party. And she's a great person and still a dear friend. I was texting with her last night, still a dear friend to this day. But all of those things that we didn't talk about, from finances to parenting to, I mean, you name it, religious backgrounds, values. And look, we talked about it, but I mean, really, really get clear on making sure that this person is the person that you want to be with. And we didn't do a lot of that. We were on the fun train, right? We were on the fun train. And I know a lot of people that do that. You get high on romance and fun and parties and trips and traveling, and it was great. And unfortunately, my alcoholism continued to progress and progress. And she did the right things by actually holding an intervention and holding a firm line with me, which said, look, you've got to go seek some help or else I'm leaving. I passed on that intervention. And it was full on one of the interventions that you see like on TV. You show up at your friend's house, thought there was going to be some more cars in the driveway, walk in, there's 10 people, parents, her, whoever in the room. Everybody's got the letters. They're reading it to you. There's tears, there's crying, and all that kind of good stuff. It's serious stuff. I'm making light of it here, but I mean it was an intense scene to be a part of, and certainly as the one who is being intervened on as well too. And I still said no. And from that point on, that I was on my own, right? Nobody really wanted anything to do with me, and it took me 2 more years of kind of going about and including ramping up drug use before I crashed and burned and reached out. But in that time, she had filed for divorce, right? She had filed for divorce, and rightfully so. And I don't blame her. And again, we have no ill will towards each other to this point in time. But that was kind of example in my life of divorce number one. And then I got married when I got sober again, which is about 9 years ago, and had a great relationship. But we were even really discussing a lot of these things going into this. We were both sober people, and really thought that this was the right way to go. She had kids, I did not have kids, and it was kind of this blended family and what that could look like. And there was a lot that went into why we ultimately divorced, and I won't get into the specifics of that today, other than to say that, again, the things that we left unaddressed, and I think in this instance, it was unaddressed not intentionally, but we just didn't think of everything, truthfully. And a lot of that was around co-parenting and what that could look like and where the boundaries were with her ex and how we would parent together, her 2 kids. And then we had a child together and what that kind of blended family and parenting situation looked like. And, I think we had all the right intentions, but when it came to execution and then the combining of life's stresses on top of it, of work and startups and her career going, it ultimately proved too much and led to a divorce again. And this divorce was much more challenging emotionally. The last divorce, I was able to kind of drink and cope and smoke and do whatever kind of my way through it. So you kind of numbed yourself. I numbed myself into rehab, by the way. So let's not glamorize the drug or alcohol use that went into that. But this time around, I had to experience it has made me a better person on the other side of this thing. But I had to experience all of those things that I didn't know. And I don't think when I was really in the contemplation stage leading up to me filing for this divorce that I fully understood that because I had numbed myself and coped through my last divorce using drugs and alcohol, right? So, there's a couple things that I want to talk about around the emotions and kind of pre-divorce, right? Then I want to talk about the post-divorce emotions, and then actually some pros and cons along the divorce as well, because it's not all negative, right? I mean, there is some positive that can come out of this, and it sounds kind of interesting when I say it out loud. I'm just looking back on my personal strife that I've had over the last year and going, yeah, there is some positive, but boy, did it take some dark, sad days to kind of get there. So a couple things emotion-wise to think about as you're kind of in either leading up to it or contemplating a divorce, right? And if you should, how is it going to impact? The first time I was married, we didn't have any kids, so that did kind of impact the decision in terms of kind of making it, quote unquote, a little bit easier. I don't think it was easier. I think I was really just more numb to the fact. But, then the second time around, we obviously have her 2 kids and then our daughter together. And that made the situation from an emotional standpoint that much more complex, right? And then the legalities of it as well, too. I mean, you want to talk about parenting plans. We got 20-page documents that now, signed off by attorneys and judges that say when and, specifically with hours and days and years on when we can see kids and when we can't. I mean, that's the level of depth that gets into these things, in case you're wondering, right? But let's get back to the emotions, because that's what I want to spend a lot of time talking about, because it consumed me. I can't speak for her, but I'm sure that it did as well too. But some of the pre-divorce emotions, so the things that were going through my mind, I was kind of writing them out as kind of show prep here, is the number one thing was kind of the ambivalence, right? So the feeling between you're torn between the desire to end the marriage and the fear of the unknown, right? So what's going to happen? What's my life going to look like? It could look like this, it could look like that. Like, I gonna have to date again, like the finances and the house, and it's just all the logistics and the stress and the co-parenting and 50-50, you get half of your kid's time. I mean, it's just, there's so much that's swirling around in your head, and these are such big life decisions that you're making, and it's really a stressful time, and it's just this ambivalence of kind of trying to process all of this, right? And now number 2, you layer in the guilt of all this as well. So, I'm sitting here struggling with the guilt of the impact on the children, her 2 kids, obviously our daughter together, the family, my family, my parents, my brother, their kids, and now they're not going to see their cousins. And it's just, this guilt is just overwhelming of, should I just stick it out? Am I doing the right thing? And it just weighs on you and sits on you. And there's no easy answer to be had other than you have to think on this, pray on it, talk to whoever you need to talk to. But even with all that guilt still sits with you. And candidly, it has sat with me still to this day of if you've done the right thing. And now my life has progressed in a very positive way, but that doesn't mean you get waves of guilt that kind of wash over you, right? And then there's this idea of relief, right? Experiencing the relief that the decision for the divorce has been made and that the process is underway. I struggle with even writing this down because even up to the moment that I was talking to the attorney and filing the paperwork and it's officially filed and now it's underway, it's like, it's really happening, right? Like, this is all really happening. It's like, yes, this is what I wanted. This is what I feel like is best to move forward with my life for happiness and things like that. But there's just this kind of relief that it's happening, but a sadness that it's happening, but knowing that you're making the right decision, but knowing that you're probably not going to feel that for a while, right? So that's just another point in kind of this pre-divorce emotion. Throughout this entire process, there's a lot of shame, right? Shame of feeling like a failure, not being able to make the marriage work. Again, I'm coming at this now from a 2-time divorced guy as well too, right? So it's like there's some stigma attached to that and some shame. You had a marriage, you invited your friends, you've seen everybody together, you go to parties, it's embarrassing. I mean, I don't even know who at our kids' private preschool, who knows? I mean, I don't, it's certainly not something I go out and talk about. I don't know if they listen to this podcast or not, but now. Hi. It just sucks, right? It just sucks. And is that ego driven? A little bit, but you just feel like we couldn't make it work. Like, really? Like this, it's just a frustrating feeling that you kind of have to hang your head a little bit and kind of say, well, this is what I think is best. But being aware of all these things when leading up to that decision for filing is vitally important. And I think I understood it. I don't think I understood all of the emotions and how it would continue to linger and for the duration that it would linger as well too. And throughout this entire process, there's also a lot of confusion, right? Why couldn't we figure this out, right? Why did this have to happen? What's gonna lie ahead? I gotta rework the living situation and school and drop off and in 50-50 custody and checking in with the other half every time you want to go somewhere. It's just, there's so many unknowns, right, in this entire situation. And it's just very stressful, right? Which leads me to the next point of, kind of the anticipation. I mean, yes, you want to get divorced, but there's just this apprehension around what is life going to look like after divorce. I'm 44 years old, what is dating going to look like? Are you going to get married again? Right? I mean, these are thoughts that are running through your head, and you're not 24 or even 34 for that matter, right? So things are a little bit different. You have a daughter now. It changes the dating pool, who you're looking for. I mean, they're all very, very strange concepts that when you've been in kind of a monogamous relationship with, two people over the last 20 years, that now you're being released out into the wild, and it's like, geez, what's going on here, right? This is not what I expected. And I'm sharing all this to say, think about all this stuff. I'm not talking you in or out of filing for divorce, but just make sure that you're armed with the emotions that are attached to all of these things, right? Now, let's get into some of the post-divorce, emotions as well too. The pre-stuff, stressful. I'm constantly like this, push and pull, this tug of war in my brain. Well, then it's post, right? It's done. There is a date. It is signed by the judge. I think mine was Halloween of last year. I think was officially like the last day. No pun intended there. I didn't ask for that. That was just by happenstance, Robin. Okay, all right. Should have wore a costume out that night. Of a happy guy. I'm just kidding. But so post-divorce, right? So, I had my reasons for filing for divorce in this thing. Other things came to light, post-divorce, right? And other new information that you maybe didn't have at the time, which then spins you out or spins me out into entirely new directions because of the things that you didn't even know were going on maybe during the divorce time. And we had to live together through that divorce, which is a really challenging situation as well too. But number one shouldn't be a shocker to anybody. That's loneliness, right? And it's a strong word, but a very accurate word, right? Especially you went from having 3 kids in a house and a wife to all the time to now you're at a house by yourself, new house. We worked out a deal. She got to keep the house through an agreement we had, and I'm in a new house and I got no one. And then occasionally I get my daughter 50% of the time. It is a profound shift from people and dogs and kids and sleepovers happening and just kind of the stuff to there's no one there, right? There's no one there. You're by yourself, right? And, there's going to be family and friends that are going to take sides in this thing, but you're just alone. And for me, I didn't even tell people, right? They may even just be hearing this right now for the first time on the podcast if they listen to this. It's not like I go on, I'm not one of these at least that goes on social media and it's like, all right, single time, we're the guys that, nothing like that. It's just like I go on with my life. and just kind of slowly, as it comes up in conversation, kind of share. Because again, that guilt and shame and embarrassment that kind of came with all that stuff. But there is a profound sense of loneliness, that goes from, lots of people, lots of activities to lots of time by yourself and lots of thoughts and lots of emotions, right? The next thing on that list is regret, right? Experiencing regret about the divorce and the decision and the way it was handled. I still have regret about some of the way I handled things early on. Not proud of it. I mean, it's just, you lash out, you say mean things because I'm feeling hurt, again, because I found out some information after the fact that was tough about, your ex-wife now dating immediately post-divorce, if it was post-divorce. But that's neither here nor there. It's hurtful stuff, right? So, there's the regret of, yeah, did I do the right thing? Do you still struggle with that? I've processed it to the point that, yes, in fact, I did, but it doesn't make it still kind of spin in your brain. And then some of the things you do during those early days of like, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean that. That's me knowing that I was hurt, and I still feel regret about some of those things that have happened. And this was an interesting one that I put some thought into, the loss of identity, right? The loss of identity as a spouse or a partner, and finding that new sense of self. Who am I without this other person? We are not a couple. We are not that family anymore, right? I'm now a single dad, right? I'm now a single dad, and some of the time I'm just single at my house alone. And what is that? Who am I? How do I fill that time? Who do I want to be? How do I deal with this? What type of dad do I want to be? All of these things, and you're basically reworking who you are. And again, this started at 43 for me. So really digging in deep to who you are and where you think you should be, who you want to be, you're starting over. What is that new chapter like, and how I want to do that? For me, exercise, yoga has been obviously my newest, biggest thing. If you've listened to this podcast more than 10 seconds, you've heard me talk about yoga over the course of the last year. It was there this morning. I mean, these are, finding a new balanced person is really who I'm trying to be, and being an excellent dad and role model to my daughter. And those are the things that I'm starting to build my new identity around too. And I touched on this next one already too, is the jealousy part. That one happened to flare its ugly head very early in my divorce situation, right? When your ex-spouse, she moved on quickly. I mean, immediately, maybe a little too soon. But, that's just allegedly, we'll call it that, right? And that hurts, right? That hurts as someone you love is now with someone else. And I made a commitment to myself, coming out of this divorce, that I didn't want to start dating right away. My brain was telling me, get out there, go do it. You're single. You can, see what's out there. I also know me, right? I know me, and I could easily jump into relationships to feel better, right? To use, not use, but to get into something. So you're now focusing your attention on a girl and a relationship and dinners or going out or going on a trip or sex or whatever it is that makes you feel good. Every bit that just doesn't let you feel bad, right? Because you're just going through that. And I said, look, I'm not going to do that for 6 months, right? And that wasn't like a hard and fast thing. That was just something I said to myself because I knew I could jump into that. And I knew that I needed, if I didn't want to do this again, I knew that I needed to take that time and focus on myself. And I did. But those feelings of jealousy, the feelings of thinking of that person with someone else, what they're doing right now, were hard. And there were nights where you would toss and turn and keep you up and sick to your stomach and all of that type of stuff. And I wish there was something that I could tell you over the microphone here that's going to make that feel better. And the only thing I found was time, right? It was just time, but I filled my days with activities and helping others and business and new hobbies like podcasting and exercise and yoga. But then there will be times where you are alone with your mind and things will just suck. And that's just the matter of to it. And I hope that you don't just turn to a bottle, turn to a joint, turn to something else, turn to sex, whatever it is, but that you're able to maybe go to a counselor, find some time, or find ways to process that stuff healthy. But do understand that those things will come up and it will suck, but you will get through it. And you will ultimately actually come out better than probably the other person who's jumped into something and is repeating the same pattern maybe that they did before. So take that for what it's worth. There's going to be some financial stress changes, different situation, whether you've got a payment to your spouse or what it looks like that, that mortgage payment that you used to share with two people and all the bills that used to get split with two people are now your responsibility, right? Not the end of the world for a lot of people, but for some people that financial stress is a significant thing, and make sure that you've thought about that. I was well aware of that, but it's like, until it starts really hitting, you're like, oh, wow, everything costs double, right? Everything costs double. So just something to keep in mind, that when you divide these things up, we had a very nice house in McCormick Ranch, and now I've got half the house of that, but that's okay. Those are the things that come along with it. Just make sure that you're thinking of these things through as you're going through all this. Isolation, right? This goes back to loneliness as well, too. I mean, there's going to be friends and peer groups and social circles that you were once both involved in that you're now not both involved in, right? What does that look like? Are you okay with that? Are you going to be okay with that? How are you going to deal with that? Understand that people are going to pick sides, right? We go to school and, some of the parents know, I was informed recently that some of the parents know that we divorced. Not a big deal. I'm certainly not out there advertising, but it's like, all right, are you going to get viewed a little bit differently? Probably. There's a little stigma that comes with that. That's okay. We've handled it very well. We don't say anything mean about each other, but just understand that certain groups of people are probably going to go with her. Certain groups of people are probably going to go with you. Or you may lose those groups altogether and just may have to find entirely new social circles as well, too, right? And just be, again, aware that all of this stuff could be happening, right? There's going to be some numbness that comes through this, whether that's attached to the jealousy, whether it's attached to just the isolation or the loss of identity. Just know that numbness, that I'm just not sure, it seems like a lot, you're overwhelmed. Make sure that you're coping with these things in healthy manners. Hobbies, activities, youth groups, church, trips, volunteer. Find something to kind of make sure that you're using whatever, however you need to process it, it's going into a healthy direction. That ties into doubt as well, too. There's going to be a lot of self-doubt about, should I get married again? Am I just a divorce machine, right? Is this just going to keep happening? I think it's important that you do the work on yourself to make sure, hopefully, that you could prevent this from happening next time, should you choose to get married, and you can or not. I don't have, any input on that. That's entirely up to you. But there is the doubt of like, should I do this? What did I do wrong? How can I do this better? And throughout this whole thing on just the post-divorce emotions, it's just mixed emotions. It's just a freaking roller coaster of you're having great days and terrible days all in the same day, right? It's the highs and the lows. And the more that you can smooth those out, and they do smooth out. I mean, if you look at my first few months, it's just up and down. It's just volatile as all hell. And then gradually, the distance between those ups and downs starts to level out a little bit more. And then you'll see maybe an occasional spike. If something upsets you, your trigger, you get a piece of information. All of a sudden, she's engaged, whatever it is, right? But it is a mix and a wide range of emotions that kind of go through this. And I'll just say, anger for me in a lot of this kind of was kind of the thread that went through a lot of this. Anger at myself, anger at her, anger at the situation, anger at how did we get to this point, anger that you're doing this again, anger that I didn't choose better, the anger just da-da-da-da-da. Take a breath, understand tomorrow's a new day, and you're going to be able to get through all this stuff. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and really kind of hammer through some of those the emotions, because that was really the most intense part of the divorce as well, too. And especially, again, as someone who wasn't able to drink themselves through this whole thing. But let me go a little bit on the positive side potentially here as well, too. Unexpected pros, right, of divorce, right? So maybe there's some room for some personal growth, right? You can confront your own personal issues, find some new self-discovery, right? Find new things that you're into, right? If you're kind of putting yourself out there. So there is some opportunity to kind of redefine who you are. It does not mean that it's the end of your life or the end of your dating. This is just a chance to pause and now find new ways for personal growth. It also ties into new opportunities, right? So you can pursue different goals, different interests, right? my example is yoga. That was not something that I ever was exposed to or did together. Now I can't think of my life without that and just the benefits that I get. And I love to be able to share those with people, which is why I talk about it all the time. Improve mental health, right? So again, the farther I've gotten away from this thing, I've been able to get healthier, right? It was a little toxic. Granted, some of that was tied to startup and the work and stress and family stress and investors and things like that. It all kind of weaved itself in together. I'm not entirely blaming, my ex for this situation at all. But my mental health has gotten significantly better post with work, right? So I've been putting in the work to kind of improve myself as I've gone over the course of this thing as well too. And next up is another pro is some new social connections, right? Meeting people, is going on dates, got some new friends, spend more time at the gym, new social circles, supports, kind of reconnecting with maybe friends that you didn't talk to as much when you were divorced. So there is a whole new kind of social side to this thing as well too. Now, that does take some effort and work to put yourself out there, and don't think that you have to do it on day one as well too, because again, remember, you're going to have a swirling range of emotions as we've already talked about. And another pro is just some independence as well too, right? You probably were, I don't want to say codependent, but you kind of had this bond with somebody that you kind of helped manage lives together. Now you're on your own, right? Now you have the ability to make your own decisions. Now you can really have kind of a new sense of who you are and how you want to live your life. So I think that is a positive thing coming out of this, coming out of a divorce situation. And maybe there's some career advancement as well too. Maybe without the marriage, and you can focus a little bit more time and effort into the career and really dig into that, or change paths and go somewhere that you want to go, right? So there are some positives that can come out of this entire thing. And on the flip side of that whole thing, there are some cons to the divorce as well too, right? Look, it's the emotional toll. It's draining. It causes anxiety. It can cause depression. It just is what it is. So just make sure as you're going into this, you're going to understand that there are going to be waves, and that emotional toll will hit you at some point in time, and making sure that you are prepared, whether it's through counseling, through church, through friends, through family, whatever it is, to be able to address that appropriately. And again, not just drink or numb yourself through it, right? There's going to be some financial strain. I don't care how well off you are. And in fact, the more well off could be more emotional toll, because now you could be splitting assets right down the middle, and that can get very costly and ugly as well too, right? So you went from one household to two, and now there's going to be payments and money and the dividing assets and all of those types of things. I was very fortunate in both my situations that we had agreements in place that kind of said this is this and this is that, and that part of our divorce actually wasn't that ugly as it is with a lot of things, right? So, but just be aware, financial things will be impacted significantly. Obviously, a con is going to be the impact on the children, right? It's going to have a lasting impact. It's that you can dramatically decrease the impact on that depending on how you handle the divorce as well too, right? And I think, I don't know if it was Prager or somebody else I heard, kind of talking about lots of people get divorced. Kids can understand that, right? That people can get divorced. It's post-divorce if you're still bickering, angry, fighting, nitpicking, saying bad things, including the kids in your arguments and things like that. That is where the lasting impact can really, deteriorate and have an impact on your children. So divorce, we can understand, but being able to kind of keep that a divorce and then being able to move on and not keep looping the kids into that as well too, right? Another one is going to be loneliness, right? That isolation, that loneliness, your friends and family are going to take sides. They're going to have questions, and you're going to be just stuck there, right? I mean, you know it inherently as you're going through the divorce that loneliness is going to be a part of this entire thing. And then when all your stuff's unpacked and you're at your new place, your apartment, your condo, your house, or whatever it is, and you're sitting there and it just kind of hits you, right? Just be prepared for that. There will be legal issues, things that come up post-divorce, right? I mean, they're complex. These parenting plans, and again, we were very fortunate. Like, we got along through ours. Were we best friends? No, but I mean, as these things go, pretty even keel. But these are legal, complex documents. Then if somebody's not doing it, or if they're doing something that you think is in violation of the parenting plan or the agreement, what schools, what doctors, odds and even years and days of the week. We doing 2-2-3 or 3-5-5? I mean, it is, do I need to send 2 weeks notice if I'm going out of town for a screecher, or a week, or do I need to call or email? Do I got to use one of the court systems to be able to communicate back and forth? It is complex things. And again, that can also get expensive if you're having to constantly go to court to try and get changes to these documents as well too. And then last but not least, it's just going to have an impact on your lifestyle, right? I mean, there's going to be adjustments. There's going to be downsizing. There could be moving to different locations. It could be new schools. I mean, there are a lot of different things on just how it impacts your lifestyle. And it's going to vary from person to person, but just be aware of all of these things. The whole entire point of this conversation today is wanted to share a little personal experience on some of my thoughts being about a year out on divorce as well too, and some things that I don't think I considered. I think intellectually I considered all of these things, but I don't think emotionally I understood the impact that they were going to have when it actually happened, right? When it actually happened. And that is a big difference from kind of thinking, oh yeah, I got this. We'll go out, we'll date again, we'll get it going, we'll get the house, we'll get all that stuff going. To then it's like, okay, this is different. There's a lot, and I have a daughter. That's my number one priority. So let's make sure that we have everything in line and not just, kind of fall back into old mode of going out here, a mile or two behind me in Old Town Scottsdale and see what that life can bring to you, and kind of land in the same spot. And I could be doing the same podcast 10 years from now going, yep, should have listened to myself a little bit better that time around. So anyways, hope there was some value in this. If you know somebody that's either contemplating divorce, in the middle of a divorce, just post-divorce, I encourage you to share this podcast with them. Again, this isn't going to answer everything or make everybody feel better, but it may plant the seed or spark a thought in them of maybe something they haven't considered as they're kind of going through this entire divorce process. So, good stuff. All right. Well, that's what we got today. Appreciate the time. Thanks for the ears. If you can, please like, share, subscribe. Costs you nothing. Send it to a friend. Helps us out a ton. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.